AI software is going to blow up costs in the near future. E-commerce businesses need to prepare before the bills show up. Welcome to the E-commerce Finance Podcast. I'm Stephen Brown with LedgerGurus. Today I have Stacy Walker, Director of Growth here at LedgerGurus, and we are going to discuss managing AI software costs. Stacy, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing, Stephen?
Good.
Thanks
We
for
just
having
got
me on.
back from a conference. It was an accounting conference, but there was a lot of discussion around AI and AI software. And one of the things that I was thinking about is, what is this going to do to costs? So should we get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay. Stacy, do you want to know a little bit about the history of software pricing?
Yeah, I think it's like a really good place to start. Do you want me to take that or are you going to take that?
I'll jump in.
Okay,
I used to be in enterprise software going back to the 90s. So I'm a software veteran before I came over to the outsourced accounting world. And there's a number of licensing models. So originally there was what was called a perpetual license plus maintenance. You would get the software, you would install it on a server or a desktop, and you'd use it, and you'd pay annual maintenance so you could update the software. And pricing was fairly consistent. You saw a lot of people sometimes that would just use old software forever rather than paying the upgrade prices. And then we moved into the era of SaaS, and SaaS shifted to a subscription model where you're paying a monthly or sometimes an annual fee, and you're running on the service provider servers, or often a lot of these SaaS companies are running on top of the big infrastructure companies. So either Amazon being the most popular one, Amazon Web Services, you have Microsoft Azure, you have Google Cloud, and there was a little bit of cost there. Before, like a software vendor, their costs were essentially sending out the CD or whatever the cost of the download were.
Yeah.
Almost no cost of goods. With SaaS, there's the infrastructure costs. Well, those infrastructure costs are through the roof with AI. And I'm going to make an argument that what we're seeing today is about to shift very dramatically in the future.
Okay. Let's talk about why. So if it's going to make a shift, where's it going to make a shift? But first, as far as SaaS is concerned, I feel like where we're at now, we pay, like for the software we use, we pay an overall fee every month for the software, plus every user has a seat. So we're paying for every user as well. So that's kind of where SaaS is sitting at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of licensing models historically. For a lot of things, it was per computer. In the era of SaaS, you saw a lot of it move to per user. We've seen in the e-commerce space a decent amount of consumption models where maybe it was a certain number of contacts in your Klaviyo system, or like in the case of Shopify, there's a billing against sales. So you see a lot of revenue per sales model. And this consumption model is where I think AI is going, just because the underlying costs of the infrastructure.
So where do you think it's going to go? Right now, we're paying per seat, I feel like.
Per user is kind of how it is. I think you're going to see things go to a per user and or consumption model, where they're looking at the amount of tokens being consumed by whatever the things you're doing in AI.
Okay, so tell me more about tokens. Maybe for people that aren't aware of even what they are. Give like a really simple explanation.
Before I do that, let me talk a little bit about the underlying costs that these AI companies are consuming.
Okay.
I think in the era of SaaS, we have gotten used to a near zero cost of the underlying hardware. There's always been a hardware cost, but Google has really driven down the costs of search to where it was very, very low, and that the cost from advertising could cover the infrastructure costs. What you're seeing with an AI and these AI models is how intense the computation is. The legacy hardware was built on things that we all know of. CPUs, it's the things that are in your laptop. But the AI uses GPUs, and GPUs tend to be much more energy intensive. There's also a lot more memory demand. We're seeing a memory shortage. So the amount of compute to do these AI computations is astronomically larger than what it is to do traditional computing calculations.
Mm,
And so you're
okay.
seeing, all of these AI data centers, you're hearing in the news about the electricity that they're going to need to consume that, I'm hearing like we are here in Utah. There's a huge controversy about a huge data center that will need more electricity than all of the state of Utah is producing today.
Yeah.
And
And water.
and water, So all of these costs add up. And behind that, coming back to your question around tokens, there's this concept of tokens, and tokens are a way to measure how much AI is computing. And a lot of what they do is looking at the amount of characters in and out. And so tokens are kind of like the atomic unit of AI computation. And it's very easy, as we've learned, to consume more and more tokens as you get into AI. The problem I think we have is there's two fundamental problems. Number one, these AI companies are being fueled off of venture capital. So
Yeah.
you read in the news about how they're losing massive amounts of money. Even though they're making a lot of money, they're losing even more. So we as consumers are getting a subsidized cost, which means we're not paying the real value of those products.
Right.
And so at some point, there's going to be an equalization. The second thing I would think about is the drug dealer model.
The drug
The,
dealer model?
the drug dealer model. If you
Okay.
think
Tell me
about
more.
it, your $20 a month or $30, 25, whatever it is not what you're actually, that is not covering the costs. And yes, we see OpenAI wanting to get into advertising. They're starting to get into advertising and find new revenue models. But we're not, the cost of using these products is higher than the cost that we're paying. And so
Mm,
they're doing the drug dealer model. They're getting us hooked with this super low cost model. And I think it's as you see these companies go public, which by all accounts, it sounds like they're going to this year. We saw SpaceX, which includes the AI capabilities, go public with a
yeah.
phenomenal IPO. There's a race to go IPO between OpenAI and Anthropic. And we're already seeing a monthly subscription plus consumption model. So if you go into Claude or a lot of these, you'll see there are limits. And I think that's the way of the future. I think this base subscription is going to give you a certain amount of tokens and usage. And at some point, you're going to have to pay for that overage.
So the trick is they're getting us all hooked so that then when it's time to pay for tokens, it's a small price to pay for the efficiency that we've created using the tools.
Correct.
Interesting.
And we're seeing that they're all, at the API level, they're pricing per million tokens. And it's a lot as if like a developer does on Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. There's consumption models. It's like how much storage. And I
Yeah.
think this is going to be the way of the future. So as people are going headlong into using AI tools and building out agents and whatnot, that you're going to see more consumption. We're seeing this a lot of AI enabled software. There's really a few AI companies, right? You've got
Yeah.
and it's really Anthropic and OpenAI are the big two, and there's a couple others, Perplexity. But everybody else is just making API calls to either OpenAI or Claude,
Yeah.
and and so they're going to be doing the same thing. They're going to be like, here's my AI powered software. Oh, by the way, you're going to have to start paying a consumption if you want to use more than this base level of capabilities.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and we've seen in some of our software where we use those AI based limits and we blow through them in a hot second.
Yeah. So what do you think the bill is going to look like each month?
That is the big question.
Huh?
I think it could be enormous if businesses aren't starting to be really thoughtful about how they approach the usage of AI tools. Coming back to my earlier example, a study found that 68% of software vendors now charge separately for AI features or gate them in premium tiers. So the market is already rapidly moving to this place.
Interesting.
I think two things will happen. I would not be surprised to see the base price of these tools go up, maybe a little bit, just to account for their costs. But I also think you're going to see more limits It's this drug dealer conundrum, right? You got to give them enough so that they get hooked, so they'll start building stuff.
Right.
But you don't want to give them too much, right? You gotta make sure you limit it so that they start being like they have to start paying for their usage.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so where do you think all of this is headed then? The hybrid pricing will take over. Do you think people will suddenly decide, "Oh, it costs so much to use AI, I'm not gonna do it anymore," and they'll go back? Or are they gonna realign their finances so they can invest more in AI?
I think hybrid pricing is already here, and it's going to become more apparent over this next year. And I think usage is going to become usage is going to be the key thing. Do I think that will cause people to run away from using AI? No, I think what it's going to require is people to be more thoughtful about their consumption.
Yeah.
And part of it too, I heard an interesting conversation recently, whereas if you look at, take Claude, for example. Claude has multiple models, and each model has different costs. So we had the Fable model, which was here for a hot second and then disappeared due to the regulations. But right now, I'm looking at Claude, and you've got Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. And who knows, maybe we'll get Fable or something like Fable in the future. And when Fable came out, I remember they're saying, hey, just beware, this is going to take about twice as many tokens as you're used to. I think there's going to be a philosophy for how you use this AI to be like, what are the things that the lower cost models are tuned for? And what are the things that you need the higher cost models?
Yeah.
And the analogy I heard is it's almost like with labor. Hey, what are the things that I can give lower cost labor, aka lower cost, aka the lower cost models, and what can I give to the more sophisticated, paid employee, aka the higher, newer, more
Yeah.
expensive models?
Yeah, depending on their role, that would make sense. Um, how are teams going to like, we're seeing a little bit of this now, but how soon do you see AI becoming more of a sales channel and more of a sales and marketing engine? Right now, it kind of is. We're already seeing that shift, right? Where SEO, I don't want to say it's dead because that's dramatic, but it's definitely shifting some to GEO. So, like, how soon do you think that becomes a bigger player in the space? When are we buying from AI?
I think we're already seeing that. It's going out slowly. OpenAI they've launched marketing. I haven't seen a lot of people using it. I've been reading a little bit about it. You definitely have. They've facilitated some checkouts, although they seem to be running into some bumps. To me, those are revenue models that will help subsidize the costs of AI. I still think that the underlying subscription and usage costs are going to go up despite additional revenue streams that will emerge.
Interesting. So, what's the difference between people who adopt AI and people who, and I'm going to say adopt it like we're kind of using it, and people who go all in on it? Is there going to be a huge differentiator in the market?
Well, I think we're definitely seeing, I mean, you tell me, like, do you guys use AI for critical workflows today within the growth team here at LedgerGurus?
Yeah, for sure. I
And
think
I know
everyone on our team is using AI every single day.
if we pulled that out, it's going to increase the time to do things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I know in the DTC business that I co-own, Sole Toscana, we have replaced certain labor functions with AI tools. So I don't think increasing costs are going to force us to go back, that extreme. I do think they're going to they're going to be a reckoning for us to really look at what is moving a business forward and what is just nice to have.
Yeah.
And or force people to really optimize, maybe by models, and say, hey, could I do this thing with a lower cost model and save some dollars?
Do you think it'll be easy for people to determine their ROI with all of their AI functions?
Oof, I think it's going to be hard. I mean,
I
I
think
think
so
this
too.
is I think this is going to be I wouldn't be surprised if we see some software vendors pop up that are around AI cost management. I'm sure
Mhm.
they already exist. I just haven't
Yeah.
heard of them.
Yeah.
The analogy that I'd put for e-commerce businesses, Shopify plugins. I've seen over the
Oh, yeah.
years people's Shopify plugins just bloat, just bloat until they're like, ah, crap, I gotta, take a look at these. Well, I think AI costs are going to be that on steroids.
Oh, okay.
I think, and so I think there's going to be a reckoning, and I think it's going to be kind of hard until either the AI software build better visibility and understanding of consumption, or third-party tools. I'm not sure how well third-party tools could look at that, but I do think that's going to become a bigger issue.
Yeah, I could see that. I can see that.
The one caveat I'd put out there, technology has historically tried to drive down their costs or maintain their costs. I personally can't remember a time in my career where we've seen underlying technology costs blow up like we're seeing.
Yeah.
I do think that you're going to see them really focus more on cost efficiency in models. I do think you're going to see them look at hardware efficiency. I guess those are kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
NVIDIA, who is dominating the GPU and the AI infrastructure, I think they're going to have increased pressure to make their underlying hardware more efficient. But we could be going through a period of cost expansion before these industries get back to what they're good at, which is finding ways to drive down costs of compute.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Tell me what's going on with Microsoft right now.
Well,
Microsoft
there's a couple of
a little
examples.
shift. Yeah.
Yeah, so Microsoft I'll give you a couple examples of pricing. Microsoft announced that GitHub Copilot was going from flat premium request billing to usage based effective June 1st. OpenAI made a similar shift on April 2nd. In a variety of their plans. I just think this is something you're going to see across the board. So that you're seeing a lot of announcements here.
Yeah. Yeah. So switching to usage, I'm going to make the assumption that we'll still be paying for our seats and then usage for each of the seats. How soon do you think the pricing will change?
I mean, pricing is
Use your
changing.
use your crystal ball and tell us.
Well, I think by the end of 2026, you're going to see.
Really? You think that soon?
Yeah, I think you're going to see increased pressure on pricing. I mean, you already see it with Claude, where they have their limits. I mentioned
Yeah.
this earlier.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to see. I mean, Klaviyo has this with their customer agent AI. I think you're going to see this across the board. Gorgeous, which is customer service, is charging on a usage-based model. Right now, with Shopify, Magic, and Sidekick are bundled in together, but I think it's only a matter of time before, as they're paying larger bills, they're passing that down to us. We're seeing this across the board in a lot of these tools, and I think it's just because again, as these companies go public, it'll be really interesting to see, are they profitable? I mean, the cost of building out these data centers is just enormous. And as you're hearing about the electricity costs alone, right? We didn't hear about data centers, traditional SaaS infrastructure data centers consuming as much electricity as the locations they were in.
That's true.
And I think that's a big component of it is, so if the cost of electricity can go down, that could be a good thing. But, my concern is, as there's more demand for electricity, if we don't see a comparable build out of new electricity capacity, that you're going to have a supply and demand effect where, if anything, these costs of compute could go up.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so where do you think it makes the most sense for AI to sit in the tech stack of an e-commerce brand?
Well, I think it sits in a couple of places. AI has bled into all of the software. Everybody's doing AI and they're using it. And I'd say some people are doing more interesting things than others. So I think they're gonna the traditional SaaS companies who are now using AI features, they're gonna be under pressure to do those things more efficiently. And the AI infrastructure companies likewise are going to be under pressure to do what they do more efficiently. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of us that have gone AI first I don't know about you, but I do a lot of things using Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude that I used to be able to do in Google. I
Yeah,
just be
that's
like,
true. That's true.
and Google got that transaction of a search result really cheap. So in one part, you could argue like some of what's going on really needs to function more like a search engine, which is really low cost, really simple, quick results. AI tends to be really noisy. And I think, like, I don't know about you, but I get sometimes annoyed by how verbose AI can be. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, just give me a paragraph. So
Yeah, just give me the answer fast.
I think the AI companies, as well as the SaaS software out there, it's upon them to consume tokens more efficiently. Like a lot of us don't want paragraphs. We want like a sentence, a phrase. I'd rather have a really concise answer with a reference akin to search than I would like 10 paragraphs explaining why things are good or why things are the way they are. So I do
So,
think that there's going to be pressure from those companies to do a better job of being more cost efficient.
yeah, give us just a straight answer. Do you think there's any world where people shift back to like a Google type mindset where they're going back to Google to be like, I mean, Google's using AI for their answers anyway, but
Google has the AI results. I've found myself I found myself still going to Google just out of muscle memory because it's fast, because they have the Gemini results right there.
I feel like the Gemini results are shorter though. If you ask a question in
Gemini
chat,
is
you're going to get
there's
a much
yeah,
longer response. So I
ChatGPT
wonder if
is
people, yeah, I wonder if people will start thinking the same as you and I. I just need a quick answer, and they're going to take those things they need a quick answer to away from AI back to Google, which is still using AI, but it's just a much shorter response, and that
correct.
saves money on tokens. Maybe I don't know.
Well, a lot of these tools are building model routing into it. They've got like
Okay.
auto model detection. And I think you'll see more of that, where unless you specifically or explicitly specify, use this model to answer my question. I mean, the average consumer probably
Interesting.
can't tell you what the different models do. They just
No,
like, hey, the
I
bigger one's
agree.
better.
Yeah.
So I think they will build routing into the models, which will help optimize costs. They're already doing that. I think you'll see more of that. The software companies that are implementing these models need to make sure that they're leveraging that as well. And so that's not necessarily going to be the e-commerce company. I think what the e-commerce businesses are going to have to look at is I think they're going to have to really scrutinize consumption and pressure their vendors to help them understand how they're using AI so that when they're exceeding cost that they have a better insight on how they can be cost optimized.
Yeah.
I think the AI companies are doing a poor job of communicating how things are working. Like if I go into Claude, what they give me is a planned usage limit, which is current session. They're giving me weekly limits, but they're not really telling me why I'm hitting those limits.
And people are going to want to know.
Yeah, and I think what you're going to want to see, especially as people are building agents, or in OpenAI it's custom GPTs, in Claude it's projects. They're going to want to know, hey, which one of these things is consuming my credits? And then I
It
think
becomes like an electricity bill.
yeah, help me understand how which of my things that I'm using to automate are consuming all of my, is it co-work? Is it code? Is it a
Yeah.
project? Is it a GPT? Is it an agent? And even then, I would want to know further. So let's say there is one project in Claude that's just burning through credits like crazy. I'd still want to know further, like, could I understand how that usage is be going? I would want to understand how that usage is occurring so that I can understand how to optimize. And right now, I don't feel like there's good insights in any of the platforms around usage. It's just like, here's your limit, here's what you are. But I do think you're going to have to think about that as you start to move towards um, higher consumption bills.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me how would an e-commerce brand, I'm going to start over. How would an e-commerce brand evaluate their spend on AI?
Let me think about this for a second. This is a good kind of wrap up. Right now, kind of from my previous conversations, a little bit tough. So, what I want to be looking at really What I can look at is really straightforward. How much am I spending on software as a whole? But how much am I spending by vendor? And if I see that cost creeping up, then I'm going to want to get to as much detail as I possibly can. And I believe that very easily you're going to see software costs creep, not just creep, but expand and could easily exceed any savings that they're producing. So the easiest way to do it from a financial standpoint is to look at what is my spend in this category? What is my spend by vendor? As you see that creeping up, start to dig in with whatever analytics you have to understand where the spend is going. And then you need to start making those assessments. Is the cost of using this outweighing the benefits?
Yeah.
And this isn't something we've had to do in business for a long time because, for the most part, software was fairly low cost and the benefits were fairly clear. But I think as we're moving into this higher cost era, this skill is something that every e-commerce business and every business period is going to have to start thinking about.
Yeah, and I was thinking about earlier you mentioned how on Shopify, like all of the plugins that come in, right? All of the add-ons that people get. As AI becomes adopted more, as people use it more, like you mentioned, it's going to be in all of the softwares. And I can see people thinking, oh, I need this software, it has AI. Oh, I need this software, it has AI, until they end up kind of in that same situation with Shopify, right? They have all of this tech and it all has AI. But at the end of the day, is it all providing a benefit to the business, or have we inadvertently just added a pile of expenses that aren't producing any return? So that's something I think people also need to be aware of.
And at the end of the day, when I think about software, I think about two things. Number one, is the software producing more revenue? There's not a lot of software that clearly drives revenue. I mean,
Yeah.
there is some. You could argue, Shopify is a revenue component for an e-commerce business. Klaviyo, email marketing.
Yeah.
But even then, you got to really look and say, is it, I'm spending more on the AI usage. Did it increase sales? Yes or no? The other question you have to ask is AI decreasing costs? And usually the costs are in the form of labor. Am I able to do more with software than I am with people?
Yeah.
Or are the same people getting more done, producing more, that is having a greater bottom line impact than ever? And I just don't think that a lot of people have been thinking this way, but they're going to need to start thinking this way more than ever. I will predict that this is going to become a huge issue as early as the end of the year, but I would not be shocked if it is a big issue in 2027.
Yeah, I agree.
So this is my mid-year prediction. I usually do my predictions at the end of the year. I will probably make this a big prediction going into 2027, but I'm calling it now. This is going to be one of my big e-commerce finance predictions for 2027, that AI costs will become an issue that every brand needs to be considering.
I agree. Totally.
All right, let's call this a wrap. Thanks for joining me, Stacy.
Thanks, Stephen.
Today's episode is brought to you by LedgerGurus, your partner in mastering cost of goods sold and inventory accounting. Do you trust your cost of goods sold number? At LedgerGurus, we specialize in helping e-commerce businesses bridge the gap between inventory operations and accurate financials, giving you numbers you can trust so you can make data-driven decisions. Head over to ledgergurus.com and learn how we can help you take control of your inventory and numbers today. That's LedgerGurus.com.